Right. Good morning, everybody. Great to see so many smiling faces after the intense session last night and the late dinner. Welcome back. Good time was had by all. I'll say that. As mentioned, my name is Hildebolt. I'm the co-founder of a influencer marketing platform called gen.video. The quick 1-minute commercial on us is we are an influencer marketing platform, as I mentioned, that is focused on driving e-commerce outcomes and quantifiable ROI for our clients. We are currently the #1 rated platform on G2 for customer satisfaction for enterprise clients. And since most of you all here are enterprise class customers, we are absolutely matches for you all. And so let's chat if anybody is interested. But for now, we are going to be chatting about Monica Belsito and her company LOLA. So why don't you kick us off by just telling us about your career journey, how you got to where you are?
Sure. So I started my career in crisis management, actually, but in doing so, got exposed to all of the great big CPG players out there, and really wanted to make brand management my lifelong career. So I went to business school, got an internship, and then offered people to come on and did the very traditional track through the base brand management and innovation program there. And it was really at the height of my time in the innovation world where I started to see how broken the system at CPG was. And what I mean by that was that we would spend millions of dollars, years and years on tapping into these amazing consumer insights and developing them into product concepts, only for them to be very diluted once it got to the buyer floor. So the customer, being Walmart, Costco, etc., was essentially asking us to trade up a category. And in order to do that, we were adding all of these bells and whistles that weren't meeting on the consumer problem. And because of that, we were creating these brands that were essentially categories of duopolies that offered no real innovation, no real solutions to consumers. And I was really lucky at that point in my career for Dollar Shave Club to give me a call and ask to come over to their team to really instill some discipline in brand development, because obviously they had launched with that amazing viral video that many of you all know, but didn't really know where to go from there. Maybe they had something with subscription razors, but didn't necessarily understand how to build a broader brand or how to scale the business into something more than just a razor company. So I was very fortunate to spend 2.5 years there. Before getting acquired by Unilever. I didn't want to go back to working for the man so fast. I also wanted to get back to New York City and was super fortunate to get introduced to Jordana and Alex, who were creating this amazing brand for women. What they saw happening, in the broader scape was that subscription box businesses were obviously taking off, just like Dollar Shave Club had. But that there was nothing in the women's reproductive health space. And what do you need more frequently, more consistently than a tampon pad and liner? Our periods are something that we never wanted to subscribe to, but we all do, and our control allows us not to. So it just, from a business perspective, made perfect sense. But then from a consumer perspective also, when she was going out to find a contract manufacturer to work with, what she found was that no one was willing to tell her what was actually in a tampon. And that was really the big aha moment here, was that we had been using these products, putting them in on our bodies in very intimate spaces, but we never bothered to turn the box around to take a look at what's inside. And because the FDA classifies these products as medical spaces, brands are not required to list the ingredients, and so they don't. So when we turn the box around, it said may contain, which is ridiculous. But because the topic is taboo, we were never, thought to really question what these products were. Typically, we were given the first one by a very trusted person like a mom or a sister. And so again, it was this growth routine behavior that we had that we didn't question because we never talked about these topics openly. So when we started the brand, we set out to solve 3 problems really. The first was breaking down that taboo, normalizing the conversation, because when conversations are normalized, you then get progress. And then 2, creating ingredients transparency and we're really proud that Grace Meg in the state of New York has now passed the Transparency Act for ingredient labeling, and we were partners with her for 4 years to get that done. And then thirdly is really creating access, so that you never were, running to the drugstore with the water toilet paper your hands because you never had a tampon and you actually needed one, and understanding that everyone's flow is different and it should be customizable and curated to your own needs.
It's awesome. And so as you made that transition, when you got to Dollar Shave Club, you have that marketing momentum behind it. It's incredible viral sensation. And of course, you can't plan for virality. Did you feel like, was there pressure to try to recreate that? Was there stress in your mind that you didn't have that? How did you think about that initial marketing push?
Yeah, so I think it goes back to really understanding the consumer and the consumer insight and kind of what is the rub in the category. So for shading, it was stop paying for the bells and whistles, really kind of, again, in a routine category that's dominated by one or two brands, Gillette and Shave. Same dynamic in period care where there's Kotex. These are categories where there's low loyalty. You really need to ask a simple question and not feel like you're talking down to the consumer, but they're with the consumer, feeling that frustration as well. And so with Dollar Shave Club, it was the viral video exposing all of the ingredients in a really irreverent, fun way to that consumer. For LOLA, the question is, do you know what's in your campaign? And that simple question, again, created the landscape for virality, whether it was through the press, because we got a ton of press coverage for it, or through our own video that also went viral. So I think the key is not being limited to, I think, a certain media content or concept, but really understanding what is that core rub, what is that simple message, that question that you can ask that opens up the conversation that gets the consumer to think, that will get them to pass it on.
It's awesome. All right, so we've got awareness covered. Now we've got to think about distribution. You all started ETC, so talk about that. You had experience in your previous with traditional brick and mortar, with e-commerce, Dollar Shave Club, obviously fully PCC. How do you guys decide what to do? And is it the same thing for anyone starting a new product in one of these categories? Is it always the same path, or what are the variables you need to think about if you want to start a company like yours?
Yeah, I think there are a few different paths that you can take. I think, back then, it's not that long ago, but it certainly was a time where, your DR on social was much cheaper. It's a lot more expensive now to launch a brand utilizing Facebook, I think, or Meta, excuse me, as I have. I think at Dollar Shave Club at the time, it was, 2011, 2012, our CPAs were insanely cheap. We were acquiring customers at $6 paid. It was crazy. You could still hack the system and day trade on Facebook. All of that is now gone. It's completely different. You have to let it fly and let it go through the learning phase. You have zero control and you have no idea where it's going. And you can't audience target and everyone's going after the same lookalike. So I think it's just a lot harder to have that hockey stick effect in a direct to consumer space. At least it's definitely a lot more expensive, and you should expect for that expense. So what you need to balance the paid is obviously organic and what that's influencer marketing. You need to make sure your word of mouth is strong. And, one of the things that we did at LOLA very early on was that we actually created B2B partnerships. So we're the exclusive period product of Equinox worldwide, which is an amazing, profitable marketing trial venue. So I think it just takes a little bit more creativity of where can the consumer discover your products, because it's not just going to be on Facebook, and if Facebook is your only outlet, it's going to be way too expensive to scale. Which is also why you see a lot of brands now dually entering direct consumer and quickly getting into retail thereafter. So, at LOLA, we had the privilege of being early enough so that we could scale to a broad US base. We have general populations or statistical significance. And what we're doing now is utilizing D2C as a learning lab rather than a scale channel. So retail is now a scale channel. We launched into Walmart's nationwide in 2020. The worst month ever. It was April of 2020, literally when Walmart's were shutting down. But regardless, that launch has been incredibly successful for us, and we continue to grow in other retailers in different retail environments. We just launched into drug. That's kind of where the growth is happening right now, because it is a lot more affordable. That shelf space becomes the billboard, and go back to kind of the roots of that traditional, it's full funnel of awareness being actually more important than PR.
All right, so now we're back to brick and mortar, right where you left.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it the same pain points with them now that, you know, like, are you forced to make the compromises and saying, well, you're not the size of Colgate, so you can imagine that it could be worse, actually. But what is the reality?
So the reality is, and this is where D2C becomes this secret magic sauce, is that, like I said, our D2C base is big enough and broad enough that I have a statistical significant user consumer lab that is raising their hand every day, proactively giving me rich insights, not just about the product, but also how they're shopping the product, what's frustrating them, what's becoming convenient, how they want to shop, how they want to use, and how their cross-category is mixing. So what LOLA does very differently than the large CPGs is we actually look at the consumer first. We take a consumer-centric approach to our brand vision and mission, which is to cover from first period to last hot flash. And what that means is I don't care about being the best absorbent hygiene maker in the world, because I don't know how to manufacture it. I care about finding a contract manufacturer that makes the best organic cotton tampon. But then I can also go out and find the best pregnancy test. I can find the best stretch cream. I can find the best cramp care solution. I can create a supplement addition. And so I can really create this holistic cross-category portfolio for her, where it's not kind of jumping across all these fractured brands in 6 different aisles of store. I can cross-merchandise those things in one aisle and, in fact, bring different buyers from different categories to the same meeting to sell in. And that is something that has never happened before. Like, to get a feminine hygiene, a feminine care, a sexual wellness, and a family planning buyer in the same room to work together to sell in an end cap for their categories where they always lost that space to oral care or to beauty, because those were always higher productive end caps. We're now winning that space. So it really isn't the same dynamic, and that's because we're bringing these very real-time qualitative and quantitative data sets that we have from our D2C base and bringing them to life for that buyer, for that shopper, for that retail environment.
That's awesome. Let's pause and talk a little bit about this idea that you marry feminine care and sexual wellness. Nobody had ever done that that I'm aware of. I worked with lots of big companies. And so, was there a pause in time to say, are we crazy to try to scorch this much earth and take on this much? Like, or did it seem obvious, like just a complete miss in the 100 years? Those two categories,
Yeah, I mean, it definitely felt obvious for us. So, I mean, as you know, our entire team is female. We have one guy. He works in logistics, but yeah, he's great. But you know, it starts first with understanding like what a weakness we had when we were going through that stage and that phase. And again, it's not like you're just having a period and then you're just having sex and then you're only trying to get pregnant, having a baby, etc. You're going through all of these categories at once. And so at every unique stage in her life, she needs various products, but has to go to all these different brands and literally has nowhere to get educated on what's happening to her body. And so even though this has been happening since the dawn of time, women continue to hack their way around that next stage in life, whether it is the first sexual encounter, again, the first time trying to conceive. We're like shocked how hard it is to get pregnant. Guess what? It's really hard. We're shocked what happens postpartum and the crazy stuff that happens to our bodies. The thing that maintained very consistent was that the problem that We had the period care where it was a taboo subject. No one was talking about it. You didn't know what to expect and you didn't feel cared for by brands. That issue got worse and worse and worse as we aged into new phases, particularly in menopause and incontinence. And so we set out very, very early on that our brand was going to be the first to cover every stage and be with her through those stages, with great quality products, but also content, education, and community, so that she wasn't alone and that she was prepared. And then it was, and you can buy products from us as well. And that has stayed true. That has stayed true because our consumer is telling us that she wants to go there with us. And we see it in the data.
Love the data.
Yep.
That's amazing. Okay, so you're DTC, you're brick and mortar, e-com, you've got it covered, but then there was I'm gonna call it a fourth channel, it's obviously related, but the sort of instantaneous delivery channel. So tell us about that. This is like my favorite part.
Yeah. So, I mean, the other thing that I forgot to mention about D2C and retail is when we first launched into D2C, it was the most convenient channel, right? Like retailers.com sites were clunky, you could barely shop off with them. There was no such thing as buy online, pick up in store. It was very antiquated. And so direct to consumer was really the easiest, most convenient way to get something delivered directly to your door. And for something like tampons that you wanted on subscription, it could be that set and forget convenience. Especially during COVID, retailers accelerated their convenience models. And so D2C now cannot really, and certainly not profitably, deliver something the same day or deliver something overnight, whereas retailers can, and many of them do pick up within the hour. Now, there's this plethora of deliver within 15 minutes, whether it's DoorDash or Uber Eats now offering more than just Eats. There's Avo, there's Fast AF. Literally, you turn around and sneeze, and there's another immediate same-day delivery service out there. And what that is amazing for us is that they oftentimes started in categories that didn't include sexual wellness. But what more than a condom or a tampon do you need in an emergency in 15 minutes or less? And one of the stories that we were talking about before that I wanted to share with you is during the pandemic, as the vaccines were coming out, we saw a huge dip early days in our condom sales, and that made a lot of sense to us. No one was out, no one was having casual sex. But when the vaccine started to roll out, it literally was a direct correlation. You could follow vaccine rates, and you have to look at the New York Times to see what percent of each state had been vaccinated. You could just look at our condom sales, and it was going up and up and up. And so, being that we can act on that immediacy in that data, we completely scrapped all of our plans for a period campaign that we were going to run. We diverted the media dollars into the new condom ad, which was around like the Vaxxed and Wax Summer of Sex. We turned it into a 6 and a 15, and actually worked with GoPuff to advertising rideshare in the back of rideshare from Thursday to Saturday, 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. QR code, get your condom delivered to your door before you get there. And it was a glorious test. We got immediate feedback, immediate results. And then we're able to take that back to the retailers and also show them, hey guys, let's get this out in the front of some of your quicker service marts. Walmart has smaller store formats. We should be putting condoms in the forefront, selling it and tap. People are out there. They're having safe sex again. Let's take advantage of this moment because we see it happening. So again, it's this great ecosystem that you can create, pulling out all of those immediate insights from D2C, going in, testing them really quickly, partnering with some of these newer, more nimble brands like the GoPuffs of the world, understanding if this is true of certain DMAs or multiple DMAs, and then taking that to your retail partners to sell in an event.
That's awesome. I mean, it's so great to hear a story where everyone wants to say we work with data, but it's not just looking at data and saying, oh, this one's working, we do more of this, but understanding the story behind it, and then acting on that and making it something new and innovative. So that's great. So it's a funny story, but it's an awesome learning for all of us. I love it. I did want to ask, so now you're in all these channels and particularly with the BDC. So one of the things we saw with one of our clients, a large laptop manufacturer, and 3-4 years ago, pre-COVID, when we were trying to drive traffic, we can drive traffic anywhere. We can track the sales results anywhere we push that traffic. It was really all Amazon all the time, which is interesting because Amazon doesn't have the best selection in laptops. But people just didn't have accounts at Best Buy, and they didn't really trust DVC sites, even from a large manufacturer. As we went through COVID, and I think at the same time you have the evolution of the browser, Chrome, autofills, everything for you now, friction came down. And so suddenly now today, Amazon's an afterthought for that manufacturer. It's Best Buy or it's their own store is where we really see the best results. Sort of curious, one, you started on DCC, but you've expanded way beyond that. But are you seeing these same falling sort of barriers that give new life to the DVC? And do you see customers moving between channels, or are they loyal to a channel?
So really, those are a lot of questions.
A lot of questions, sorry.
So I'll tackle our consumers kind of loyal to a channel. I think they are loyal for our category, especially. It tends to be a shopping list category. And so if they're going to go and be on Amazon and do their shopping on Amazon, they're going to buy their tampons, pads, liners, condoms, whatever it may be on Amazon. If they're having a shopping trip in Walmart, that's where they're going to be. But what we do see is that consumers are not necessarily loyal to one format because they have different trip types. And that really hasn't changed since the early days of CPG, right? You have your stock up trips, you have your quick trips, you have your, oh, I forgot it and I need to add that and ask Alexa to add it to my cart trips. So it really is just making sure that your brand is there for the trip that you need to be there on. And that has been, the case for whether we're launching onto Amazon and how we launch on Amazon or how we launch into drug. Because the size and the price format does need to be unique for that particular trip, because she is looking for something different from your brand on each of those channels typically. So that's really how we've kind of broken out the channel, is understanding what is the mindset of the shopper in that channel or on that .com site, and what offering can you deliver to best meet the needs of that mindset that she's in while she's shopping there. Because we're probably not going to destine her to switch her shopping behavior.
Ultimately, it's all about customer, channel agnostic. Stop worrying about channel cannibalization. Meet her where she's at.
And all of our channels have been almost entirely incremental. And I think it's one of the scariest things for a D2C brand, especially to go on Amazon. Like that's the big, scary one. You definitely have to be careful about your marketing dollars, because what you don't want to do is have like your Amazon team be spending on Google search, and then you're also spending on Google search to drive to your D2C. So you need to be very careful about literally combing through all of the AdWords to ensure that you're not bidding against yourself. But as long as you create that discipline really early on and you have that control, whether you're doing it yourself or utilizing an agency to check up on that pretty frequently, you can do both. And again, you find certain things do better from a search efficiency perspective if you're trafficking to myLOLA.com, if you're trafficking to Walmart.com, or trafficking to Amazon. And then the other thing I will say you have to be careful of is brand conquesting to those channels. So we see that a ton. My competitor brands are bidding on my terms on Google to service to their Amazon. How do we catch them either at that first kind of search, or once they get onto the Amazon platform, how do we catch them there? Same thing is happening now as Walmart Connect and Target through Lindell are getting smarter and smarter. Kroger's upscaling their media platforms. Walgreens is completely transforming theirs. So as marketers, I think the hardest thing right now is all of these retailer ad platforms are getting much more competitive. They're getting much smarter, but they're also demanding a lot more from the sales teams. And I'm at least seeing my sales team get a lot of pressure to like minimum spend on very inefficient things on the platform. And so I think another thing that D2C has helped us is help educate our salespeople on how to talk to the folks on their side, their buyers, to better understand what kind of digital media advertising is going to work so that we can get out of spending inefficiently and really move into some of their efficient programs that work really, really well.
Awesome. That's great. This has been amazing. I think we have time for one question.
Yeah, one question.
One question. Who's got it?
Yeah. Hello. Hi. Okay, so I know I told you this before, but I discovered your product at Equinox, and I just love that collaboration so much. Do you project other collaborations with big companies like Equinox? I mean, I feel like when you go to hotels or anywhere, there's no tampons, and I just would love to see more of that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So we used to have an entire team focused on B2B. Obviously, with COVID and offices shutting down, gyms shutting down, we had to reduce that down to 0 humans. But as the world opens back up, we definitely intend to lean in there and put more investment there. That is, again, it's a business model, not just a marketing effort. So there always is that balance. But we're definitely back up and selling into Equinox gyms. We're at SoulCycle. We used to be at Barry's. We'll see that coming back up quite soon. So expect the gyms probably to come first. The office spaces are really interesting right now because so many are requiring folks to come back to work, in this hybrid format. So 2 days a week, and then some at home. We're trying to reposition it as this is a perk that you should offer your employees, whether they're working from home or working at the office, because like toilet paper, it should be free and available everywhere. We're also working with public school systems. A ton of different municipalities are actually enacting laws to make period products free in bathrooms and put them in all bathrooms. That's another really big deal, not just the women's bathroom, but the men's bathroom as well, if there still are gendered bathrooms, to ensure equity and support for all genders. So, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I hope everybody was seeking on to house. That was welcome.